February 9, 2019. Two divers entered the underwater cave beneath El Dudú Lagoon in the Dominican Republic, but neither could return alive. The afternoon was hot in Cabrera. It was the kind of Saturday when tourists flocked to natural attractions, swam in crystal clear water, and enjoyed the sun. El Dudú Lagoon looked perfect, but beneath the surface, a complex cave system was waiting for its victims. Carlo Barbieri was 57 years old. Carlo Basso was 44. Both were Italian citizens living in the Dominican Republic. Barbieri owned a construction materials company in the Sanchez area of Samaná. They were friends, dive buddies, and experienced open water divers. But they were not cave divers. El Dudú Lagoon is located in the northeastern region of the Dominican Republic in the Maria Trinidad Sanchez province. It's one of the country's most popular natural attractions, drawing visitors who come to swim in fresh water, jump from rocks, and zip line over the lagoon. The water is extremely clear and provides impressive visibility on calm days. But El Dudú is more than just a swimming spot. Beneath the lagoon lies a cave system extending into the depths of the cave. The cave reaches depths over 25 meters and extends hundreds of meters through the rocks. The passages vary in size, some wide enough to swim comfortably, others can become extremely narrow. For certified cave divers, El Dudú is a challenging but passable system, but for everyone else, it harbors significant dangers. The cave system connects to an alternative exit called Cueva de Lily, where divers who complete the full traverse emerge into a dry cave inhabited by bats, tarantulas, scorpions, and snakes. However, reaching that exit requires proper training, proper equipment, and proper planning. Barbieri and Basso had none of these. They arrived at El Dudú on Saturday afternoon, February 9, 2019. They geared up with standard open water equipment, just a single tank and simple lights. But no guideline reels, no backup air sources, no cave-specific training. A warning sign is located at the cave entrance. It clearly states that diving in the cave is dangerous and requires international cave diving certification. The sign marks the boundary of the safe zone, the area recreational divers can explore without entering the true overhead environment. Barbieri and Basso ignored the sign, but it would cost them their lives. They entered the water at midday and began descending into the cave. The entrance is wide. You descend through clear water with a steady downward slope. Sunlight penetrates the first section, creating an illusion of safety. Fish swim at the upper levels. The rock formations are beautiful, covered with formations not found in Florida caves. Then they swam deeper. At some point, they passed the warning sign. They entered the real cave system, where your overhead becomes solid rock, and the only way out is the way you came. The cave passages at El Dudú wind through the limestone in complex patterns. Side passages turn in multiple directions. The floor is covered with fine silt that reduces visibility to zero at the slightest disturbance. Once silt is stirred, it can remain airborne for long periods. Water movement is minimal, so visibility can drop to nearly zero and remain compromised for extended periods. Barbieri and Basso continued forward, probably following what appeared to be the main passage. Without a guideline to mark their route, they relied entirely on memory and visual intelligence. In clear water, this can seem manageable. But if visibility drops, if sediment stirs, every passage can look the same. We don't know exactly what happened to them because they weren't carrying cameras. They had no communication equipment. They entered the cave and never returned. So what do you think might have happened in those dark depths of that cave? What happened to them? Late in the afternoon, when they still hadn't emerged, people at the lagoon began to worry. News reached Philip Lehman, Vice President of the Dominican Republic Speleological Society, DRSS. Lehman immediately contacted another DRSS member and experienced cave diver Angel Compres. Together, they went to El Dudú. At that point, no one knew where in the cave system Barbieri and Basso might be. The cave extends significant distances in multiple directions. Side passages branch and rejoin. Without knowing the diver's intended route, the search area was vast. Lehman and Compre entered the cave that evening, conducting an exploratory search. They followed the main passages, checked side tunnels, and searched for any sign of the missing divers. Visibility was already compromised. Silt hung in the water, significantly reducing sight distance. The passages and narrow sections made the search difficult, even for experienced cave divers. They found nothing that first night. The search continued over the following days. Additional DRSS members joined, including certified cave diver Sergio Yipola from Auxiliares Navales. The team worked systematically, searching as much of the cave system as conditions allowed. On February 12th, they found a body. Carlo Barbieri was found in a section of the cave in a side passage. The area where he was found was high risk, filled with silt, visibility nearly zero. But Basso was still missing. The search continued, but conditions in the cave made progress nearly impossible. Silt stirred up by multiple search dives remained suspended in the water and wouldn't settle easily. Visibility remained severely low. The passages meant divers had to work carefully, making body recovery even more difficult. After more than a week of attempts, Dominican authorities decided to bring in international help. Ed Sorensen, the famous cave rescue diver from Florida, was contacted. Sorensen had successfully recovered bodies from some of the world's most challenging cave systems. If anyone could retrieve Barbieri and Basso, it was him. Sorensen and his partner Mike Young prepared to travel to the Dominican Republic. However, when they arrived at the border, they encountered an unexpected problem. Dominican authorities initially refused their entry. The government was aware of the accident and the ongoing rescue operation, but there were bureaucratic complications. After negotiations and verification of credentials, Sorensen and Young were finally admitted to the country, but with a strict condition. They had 8 days to complete the operation. After 8 days, the operation would be permanently shut down. So was this necessary? Why didn't they give more time? After all, finding and recovering submerged bodies is not as easy as it seems, right? Sorensen brought specialized equipment designed specifically for body recovery in cave environments. This included harness systems that secured bodies at multiple attachment points, a grim necessity because bodies that have been in caves for extended periods may not maintain their integrity during extraction. He entered El Dudú prepared for difficult conditions. The cave system was as challenging as described. Silt made visibility minimal. Sorensen worked by feel, holding the guideline with one hand while reaching forward with the other, searching for anything that wasn't rock, water, or sediment. He found Barbieri's body in the side passage where the initial search team had located it. The extraction was laborious. The passage conditions, poor visibility, and the body's position made the process very difficult. But Sorensen worked methodically, secured the body, and slowly worked back through the restriction. Carlo Barbieri's body was brought to the surface on February 25th, more than 2 weeks after entering the cave. But Carlo Basso was still missing. The search for Basso continued. Sorensen and the team explored sections of the cave that hadn't been comprehensively searched due to dangerous conditions. Their 8-day deadline was running out. On February 26th, they found him. Basso's body was found in another section of the cave. Like Barbieri, he was in an area requiring careful navigation and expert diving skills to access. The recovery operation was repeated with the same painstaking attention to safety and procedure. Carlo Basso's body was brought to the surface on February 26th. Both men were dead. The exact medical cause of their deaths was not publicly disclosed, but the circumstances already told the story. They entered a cave system without proper training, without proper equipment, and without understanding the risks. They ignored clear warnings. They entered an overhead environment where their recreational diving skills were inadequate, and they didn't return. The recovery operation involved multiple agencies and organizations: DRSS, Emergency Operations Center, Civil Defense, Red Cross, National Police, and Ministry of Tourism. Multiple trained divers assisted in search and rescue efforts that lasted more than 2 weeks. The tragedy at El Dudú sparked discussions in the Dominican diving community about safety protocols and enforcement. Environmentalist Luis Carvajal called on the Ministry of Environment to establish stricter safety measures to prevent future accidents. Today, the cave system remains accessible, but the warnings are still there. Signs still mark the boundary between safe and unsafe zones. They still clearly state that cave diving certification is required beyond that point. But signs don't stop everyone. The deaths of Barbieri and Basso follow a pattern seen repeatedly in cave diving accidents worldwide. Untrained divers, often experienced in open water, enter cave systems without understanding the fundamental differences. They see clear water and wide passages at the entrance and assume they can handle it. But they're wrong. Cave diving requires specialized training for specific reasons: navigation without visual references, air management in overhead environments, dealing with silt-outs and zero visibility conditions, emergency procedures when the exit isn't visible, proper equipment configuration with redundant systems. Open water diving teaches none of these. Barbieri and Basso paid for this lack of knowledge with their lives. They entered El Dudú as confident, experienced divers. They became cautionary examples of the difference between open water diving and cave diving. The cave didn't care about their ocean experience. It didn't care that they were friends enjoying a Saturday afternoon dive. It probably didn't care that they thought they were being careful. The cave only responded to the fact that they weren't trained for overhead environments. And in a cave, that's all that matters. Carlo Barbieri and Carlo Basso learned this lesson too late. Their deaths were preventable. The warning sign was there. The certification requirements were clear. The risks were documented. But they entered anyway. However, not every cave diving tragedy begins with ignored warning signs or missing certifications. Sometimes divers know exactly where they're going. Sometimes they're trained, experienced, and respected in the caving community. Sometimes they follow procedures, lay guidelines, but still don't return. Because caves don't just punish recklessness, they also demonstrate how little margin for error there really is, even for those who believe they've accounted for everything. 17 years ago in Texas, one of the most studied and feared spring systems in the United States proved that experience doesn't equal immunity. And yes, this is exactly the Jacob's Well cave diving story. On the night of February 26, 1984, 3 skilled divers entered Jacob's Well. They had training, they had equipment, they had a plan. Only 2 could surface. The other couldn't. But that incident is the subject of our next video. That's all for now.